Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel Electro Study. This is lecture series 25 Computer Networks dealing with application layer, its services and architecture. In the before video, we have seen about transport layer, its two important protocols TCP and UDP. Now we are going to see about the next final layer in the OSI model, application layer. Come, let's go into the video. Please do like, share, subscribe and comment. So what is application layer? The application layer is the topmost layer in OSI and TCP IP layer model. So this layer exists in both layered models because of its significance of interacting with user and the user application. It is a kind of thing which transports all the data from a lower layer to the upper interface layer. So this layer, what it is used for application which is involved in many communication systems. So communication interfaces are connected to these application layer. So this layer is like as I already told, it is used for communication purpose. It is where the actual communication is initiated and reflected back. We tell that we communicate with a client and a server. So this is the layer which helps for those communication to take place by taking the data from all other layers. And so a user may or may not directly interact with the application. So this application layer initiates, and because of this layer, it is on the top of the layer, top of the OSI model. It does not serve any other layers. It just takes the help of the transport layer, transports all the data and all the layers below it to communicate or transfer the data to the remote host. Say suppose what happens here is when an application layer protocol wants to communicate with its peer application layer. So here one application layer is there and the server, maybe this is the client and another you have a server side where the application layer is available. If suppose this application layer protocol wants to communicate with that peer application layer, application layer protocol on the remote host, it will hand over the data or information to the transport layer. So the transport layer, what it does, it does the rest of the application with the help of the all other layers, that is collecting the data, fetching the data, communicating. How can it communicate to the application layer? All is done through the in this application layer. So here HTTP is one of the best application layer protocol. Right. So there are another example also like FTP, file transfer protocol. Why file transfer protocol is used? It is used to transfer some text based or some binary based files across the network. Right. So irrespective of all these software, this protocol, which is considered at application layer, is used by, that is nothing but the DNS protocol. This protocol it will help the user application protocol such as HTTP to or FTP to accomplish its work. Right. So this is an important protocol that you have to remember, DNS. We will be seeing about DNS in detail in the other videos. So next, so this the application layer provides some functions. What are the function? Identifying communication partners or determining resource availability and synchronizing communication. So identifying communication partner is the client will identify the server application layer. Determining the resource availability is it will determine whether the data is fetched from the other layer and if is it sufficient for the transfer of communication from one part to the other part. And synchronizing communication is nothing but it should synchronize the communication between the peer application layer. Then only the complete setup will be provided for further communication. So these are the functions of application layer. Next is we will be seeing about the services of application layer. So first is network virtual terminal. So these are some of the services that is provided by the application layer. It will file transfer, access and management. It will help in transferring the files, accessing the files, managing the complete files in the layer, and it helps in addressing which kind of data is communicated at or through which port. Mail services, directory services, authentication is nothing but the a process called as an acknowledgement, which we have already seen. So these are the some common types of services that is provided by the application layer, right? So next we are going to see about the network application architecture. So there are two kinds of architecture. One is client server architecture and peer to peer architecture. So in client server architecture, what happens is an application program which is running on the local machine will send a request to the another application program like known as client or server, and the program that serves a request is known as the server. So for an example, when the web server receives a request from the client host, when the web server, this is the web server, think that this is the web server, it is acquiring a request from the client host, it responds to the request to the client host, right? Client to server is nothing but how you transfer a data from client to server, how the request and acknowledgement is got. That is the client server architecture. So there are a peer-to-peer architecture is nothing but there will be no particular hub but to communicate, all will be communicating to each other. This is known as peer-to-peer architecture. Through this diagram you can come to know that there is no host and it is communicating to one another, each other. Here you have an application server where the client will approach the application server, request for any data to be updated. That request will be sent to the database server, and then it reacts according to the client's request. So this is the process. So client server model. So there are some characteristics that you can see in client server model, that is the client do not directly communicate with each other. Say for example, a web application, if you take two browsers do not directly communicate with each other, right? A server will always be fixed with a well-known address or IP address. That is a Wi-Fi which we use. If you connect to the Wi-Fi, that is the fixed one which is having its own IP address. So because the server is always on, while the client can always contact the server by sending a packets to the sender's IP address, right? Okay. Now you will be seeing about the client server model. So what is a client? Can anybody tell what is a client? Yes, client is a program. This client, it is a program that runs on the local machine. Why it runs on the local machine? Because it is requesting services from the server. So a client program is a finite program, means that the service is started by the user and terminates when the service is completed. Same wise, what is the server? It is a program that runs on a remote machine. Client runs on a local machine, server runs on a remote machine, providing services to the client. When the client requests for a service, then the server opens the door for the incoming request, and then it never initiates any services. Server doesn't initiate any services until and unless a client initiate any request. So the service program is an infinite program. That means when it starts, it runs infinitely until the program arises, that is problem arises. A server waits for an incoming request from the client, and the request arrives at the server, then it responds to the request, right? So what happens is a network application, so this is the process. So a network application will be consisting of pair of processor that sends message to each other over the internet when you have a client server model. So here an application program is a client program. That is, this client program which runs on a local machine that request for the services from an application program, then that is known as a server program running on a remote machine. So a client program, next is it runs on a local machine that requests for the service. So we tell it as a client program which will be running on the local machine and requesting for a services. Now the client program runs only when it requests for the services from the server, and the server provides the services for many clients, not just for a single client. It doesn't look for only single client, so therefore we can say that the client server always follows the many to one relationship. Many clients can use the services of one server. Next, client server application program allows the user to access the files, send emails, and so on. So here the application allows to send and access the file. So if the services, if suppose they are more customized, then one can have one generic application program which will allow the user to access the services available on the remote network. Maybe it is one user or many user, whomever it is allowed to access the services. Right. Next is peer-to-peer model. Can you tell me what is peer-to-peer model? Peer means, see, peer means all computers which are linked with each other. They do not have a single hub for communication. Each and every system or nodes will act as a hub. It will communicate with each other. There is no central servers available, so each of the user is capable to share any kinds of files on any peer over the network. This peer can transfer a file to this peer, whatever it is, it can transfer on its own. Right. So mostly this peer-to-peer model is suitable for small areas, small regions, like how lands are used for small geographical space. Same way, this peer-to-peer model is best suited only for small region, like for if you have a small house or small office, very small offices that we establish, like one room or two rooms, because in this network every computer plays the role as an independent workstation. So it should be storing all the data in its own hard disk. So each and every computer is responsible for each and every data that is saved in it. So you cannot, once it is lost, you cannot recover back because there is no central hub for accessing the data. So this is peer-to-peer model. There are some application that you can see for peer-to-peer architecture. It is nothing but file sharing, instant messaging, voice communication, collaboration, high performance computing, streaming media, science, search, and communication network. So when you consider client server model, it is just that you can share the file, access the file, or request back the file, whatever it is, you can do that. But here, peer to peer, you have this much of application that is provided by this architecture. So please be stay tuned for further information in the application layer. We'll be seeing about different protocols that is followed in the application layer. Thank you.